that is the reality of the African experience, and especially Islam in Africa, which was never separated from the people. Because Islam really, instead of breaking down the ancient Egyptian civilization, Islam helped it when it was in its dying days and becoming corrupt, and actually uplifted Egyptian civilization. Because it is that same Kemetic knowledge, that same Egyptian mind, which built the pyramids, which was applied to Islamic learning. And so Al-Azhar University becomes one of the centers of knowledge for the whole world. We also find in the Sudan and in other areas of Nubia great intellectuals, and we find that Islam did not squash the traditions, but it gave it a new vista or a new venue of flourishing. And so people were able to find their understandings and to distinguish themselves and to gain a very high level of understanding through the Arabic language and through Islamic teachings. Similarly, you'll find this in East Africa, you'll find it in Central Africa, Southern Africa, West Africa, all around the continent. That Africa was always a place of a meeting point between civilizations and between individuals, and this needs to be understood in order to really project properly into the future. The word Islam itself, coming from the Arabic language, refers to surrender or submission to the will of God. And through Islamic tradition, we recognize the fact that monotheism has been shared by people throughout the planet. In the Quran it states, وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولٌ أَنْ يَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ, that we have sent to every nation a messenger, that they would believe in Allah and stay away from false deities. And so we believe that messengers came to China, to India, to Europe, to Africa, to the Americas, to all parts of the world, that the understanding of the belief in one God is not something which is particular to the Middle East, but it is an understanding that has been shared by people regardless of their language or color or the area that they live in. Secondly, the concept of Africa itself being a separated continent is a mistake, because before the colonial period there was never a discussion of the separation between Asia and Africa by the Red Sea. It was a natural connection where people would go in the northern part by Egypt or the Sudan or Somalia. They would come by the bottom of the Red Sea, by the Indian Ocean. All of that area was looked upon as being one continent, and the people up until today are interconnected culturally, linguistically, racially, and politically. In the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, we find that Africa, or the people living across the Red Sea, were looked upon as natural allies for the Muslims. It was not looked upon as an area that you would send out a conquering army. But actually, the Prophet, peace be upon him, on finding his followers being persecuted in Mecca, told them, go to Habasha, go to Ethiopia, and there you will find a righteous king, Najashi, and he would be a natural ally for you. And sure enough, the Muslims left the Arabian Peninsula, and the first hijrah, or migration, was not made to Persia, or to Rome, or to China, but the first migration was made into the African continent. There, the Muslims found sanctuary, and the king Najashi, rahimahullah, not only gave them a place of peace and abode where they could practice their religion, but it is reported that he accepted Islam before his death. And the proof of that is that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, prayed the janazah prayer for him, which is only done for Muslims themselves. Then we find that this tradition of Tawheed, or monotheism, was a tradition that actually predated the Prophet's time. And so in the same way that Islam had been practiced as a monotheistic way with prophets and messengers in all parts of the world, it has a long tradition on the African continent. As a matter of fact, I think it is proper to say that when you look at traditional African religion, we should recognize the fact that people were worshiping one God and a multiplicity of gods at the same time. That the struggle between concepts of the Creator is not new, and monotheism did not come with Middle Eastern prophets, but yet it was shared by people right from the first recorded history of the African continent. In one writing we find, and this is the teachings of Ptahhotep, which was first published in the 5th Kemetic or Egyptian dynasty, somewhere around 2388 BC. Ptahhotep was believed to be a sage who served under King Asa and was reported to have said, "Do not scheme against people. God will punish accordingly. If a man says, 'I shall live by scheming,' he will lack bread for his mouth. People's schemes do not prevail. God's command is what prevails. Therefore, live in the midst of peace. What God gives comes by itself." And so you'll find within the early writings this strong reference to the Creator, not the sun or not idols, but the Creator of the heavens and the earth. Later in the Middle Kingdom, the well-known pharaoh of monotheism, Akhenaten, who lived somewhere around 1358 BC, he expressed his dedication to the sole God in singing some psalms. He sang praise to the Creator. Within the Psalms of Akhenaten is the following: "How manifold are your works, though hidden from sight, O sole God, besides whom there is none. You created earth according to your desire, you alone. All people, cattle, and all kinds of animals, all on earth that walk on legs, and all on high that fly with wings. You set every person in his or her place, and satisfy their needs. All have food, and their time of life is determined. Their tongues differ in speech, and so do their characters. The colors of their skins are different also, for you distinguish the people. How excellent are your ways, O Lord of eternity." You can see within this a very strong connection with Surah Al-Hujurat in the Quran, also the Psalms of David, Dawood alayhi salam, and you find a very strong monotheistic discussion within the teachings of Akhenaten. Also you find within the traditions of the people of Uganda, the joke. And we're speaking about the joke like the wind of air, omnipresent, talking about the Creator. And like the joke has never been seen by anyone, his dwelling is everywhere, in the trees it may be, or rocks or hills, in some springs and pools, or vaguely in the air. And so you will find that amongst a number of people on the African continent, there was this strong discussion of the Great Spirit. The San people of southern Africa, also called the Bushmen, in their discussion or description we find the following: the San people are intensely sensitive to a governing life force, an invisible, all-present, omnipotent power, which is beyond the comprehension of man. And to this force is attributed amongst them all creation and all manifestation of nature. The Akan people of West Africa have a saying, "God is he who knows or sees all." The Burundi people of Burundi, they also have a strong discussion of the Creator of the heavens and the earth. The Xhosa people of South Africa say Kamata, and Kamata means Allah is the greatest, or it means Allahu Akbar. And they use Kamata whenever they are referring to the Creator of the heavens and the earth. The Ashanti people have a saying that is, "No one shows a child the supreme being." In other words, the child doesn't have to be taught. The child instinctively knows about the supreme being. So within traditional religion on the African continent, and when we really go into the primary sources, we find that Islam is a natural way of life, and that people rapidly accept Islam because through their traditional way of life, their understanding, they have been set on a path similar to the Islamic path. Within traditional religion, all cultural activities revolve around spirituality. In many African languages, there is no separation for church and state. There's nothing known as secular. Secular concept does not exist amongst them because everything is involved with spirituality. In the spreading of Islam to Africa, there's a lot of misunderstanding. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, sent his followers in all directions. And he told them that those who are present with him should take the message to those who are absent. Uqba ibn Nafi' radiallahu anh, one of the Sahaba, rode his horse across the North African continent and he reached the Atlantic. It is also reported that Uqba ibn Nafi' went south and he reached Lake Chad. And there are people who are actually within that desert region area claim to be descendants of Uqba ibn Nafi' and Sahaba.